The notion that the science on climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians is a misconception that has been perpetuated by certain groups and individuals. This idea is often rooted in a misunderstanding of the scientific consensus on climate change and a lack of awareness about the underlying facts. However, a closer examination of the evidence and the motivations behind climate change research reveals that this claim is unfounded and misleading. Firstly, the overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change is clear. Human activities, particularly the emission of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane, are significantly contributing to the warming of the planet. This conclusion is based on decades of research by thousands of scientists from around the world, using multiple lines of evidence and a variety of methodologies. The evidence includes temperature records, melting glaciers, sea level rise, shifts in the distribution of plants and animals, and other indicators of a changing climate. The idea that climate change is a hoax or a conspiracy to manipulate Christians is often linked to the notion that environmentalism is inherently anti-Christian, or that concerns about climate change are a form of paganism or worship of nature. However, this perspective is a misrepresentation of the values and principles that underlie environmentalism and the Christian faith. In fact, many Christians see caring for the environment as a moral and biblical imperative, rooted in the concept of stewardship and the responsibility to protect God's creation. Furthermore, the claim that climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians ignores the fact that the scientific community is diverse and includes people of many different faiths and backgrounds. Climate scientists are motivated by a desire to understand the world around them and to use their knowledge to benefit society, not by a desire to manipulate or deceive. The peer review process, which is a cornerstone of scientific research, ensures that studies are rigorously tested and validated before they are accepted as part of the scientific consensus. It is also worth noting that the impacts of climate change are not limited to environmental concerns, but also have significant social and economic implications. Climate change affects the poor and vulnerable disproportionately, exacerbating existing inequalities and injustices. From a Christian perspective, responding to climate change is not just about protecting the environment, but also about loving our neighbors and promoting justice and compassion. In addition, the argument that climate change is a lie to manipulate Christians often relies on misinformation and cherry-picked data. For example, some proponents of this view point to the fact that climate scientists have made predictions about future climate change that have not come to pass, or that there have been periods of cooling in the past. However, these arguments are often based on a misunderstanding of the complexity and variability of the climate system, and ignore the fact that climate scientists have consistently revised and refined their predictions as new data becomes available. In conclusion, the science on climate change is not a lie to manipulate Christians, but rather a well-established body of research that is grounded in evidence and supported by the overwhelming majority of the scientific community. The claim that climate change is a hoax or conspiracy to manipulate Christians is a misleading and unfounded notion that ignores the facts and the values that underlie environmentalism and the Christian faith. As Christians, we have a responsibility to care for God's creation and to promote justice and compassion, and responding to climate change is an important part of this calling. By working together to address the challenges of climate change, we can help to protect the environment, promote human well-being, and fulfill our moral and biblical obligations to be good stewards of the earth.